Welcome to another video tutorial on RevitPocket.com. Glad to have you here. So today's tutorial is going to be on levels and grids. And the way I'm starting this is I've created a project in Revit. I actually used a construction template that was already, or that came with your Revit version 2015. And what I did was I set some things up initially so we can kind of dive right in. I would advise that you do the same. In this particular case, there is an empty lot actually located in a neighborhood that I live in currently, and I used to always walk by it and think about what kind of building I would design if I was the architect who had this opportunity to design the building here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get right into it. I'm going to go over to my Revit, click that open, and if you see here already, I already have a aerial shot of the neighborhood where I live, and you can see that I've already delineated the area for the property. To the left and right are some massings that I've created to show relationships to the buildings that are adjacent to the site. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll out a little bit. And so if you look to the left here on the view, there's floor plan views, bottom footing, basement, floor plan, foundation, roof plan, second floor, site, and top of footing. These came in as levels that were already in the template that I loaded. So that was great. This kind of saved me some time. But just so you understand that these floor plans are views that are associated to levels within the model. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to actually go over to the elevation view. I'm going to click on my north view, and I want to give you an idea of what's going on here. So those levels that we were talking about right there those floor plans are associated to these levels that you see right here. And if you're looking at this view, you can see these are those massings that I extruded earlier just to kind of give me some idea of the site context that's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of ways that you can create levels in Revit. And I'm going to go right into the first one. The very first way to do it, very easy, is you go over to the Architectural tab. You click Level, which is located under the Datum toolbar. And if you click that, and you move over to the levels, you'll notice that, see it move in here a little bit, sorry. You'll notice that it's starting to look for an association where I want to place it and so forth. Right now I want to maintain that roof, so I'm going to leave that there actually, and I'm going to drop my level in between the roof and the second floor. And I'm going to scroll over, and I want my level marks to snap to each other because I like that. So now I just dropped in a level, and it says level 8. If you know anything about Revit, it's trying to be intuitive and think about the levels that we're creating. So the last level I must have created was level 7, hence why it's at level 8. So, but in this particular case, I'm going to actually change that to the third floor just to be consistent. And what I'm also going to do, that's very important too. So this box comes up and says, would you like to rename the corresponding views? So what's happening is I'm changing the names of the levels, and Revit wants to know if I want to change the view names to match that. In this particular case, I'm going to say yes. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to grab the roof line here, and I'm going to move this up. I'm just going to move it up here for now. I'm going to adjust my crop regions a little bit. I'm putting the roof up there for a reason. Hopefully you'll see it shortly. So right there and then, I showed you how you can create a level. Architecture tab, Datum, level, place the level in. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to actually click on it. You can right click and say create similar, which would just have you create a level command. And then I'm going to just do the same thing I did before and let those lock to one another, and I'm going to just click, and there's my level 9. My level 9 is going to change to 4th floor, and I'm going to say yes. So this is another way of doing it. Now another way of doing it, which I've seen happen in numerous offices that I've worked at, and this makes sense as well, I'm going to actually copy it. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to look at my Modify tab. I'm going to say Copy. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to move it up. And when I do that, it creates level 10. I'm now going to call this 5th floor. Now, if you notice that this one that I created, the data marker is white, where the other two were blue. And that's actually quite important. And why is that important? Well, when I created the third and fourth floor, by using the add level commands or create similar, what happened is, while I created that level, a floor plan was also created. So you can see that it says fourth floor, and you can also see it says third. Okay. Now, when I did the fifth floor, you notice that there is no fifth floor plan there. There's a level, but there's no plan. Why would you want to do this? Well, you may want to do this for a variety of reasons. Maybe you want to use a level as a data mark for, I've seen this used for maybe creating intermediate stair landing or anything like that. But basically it can just be exactly that. It can be a datum that you can use for constructability in your model, but not necessarily to create a floor plan because there's no relevant information that you may need to convey. But let's just say, in this particular case, I need to see this floor plan. So now if I need to see this floor plan, well, all you need to do is go to the View tab. And if you go to the View tab, you're going to see Plans and Views. And if you click on Plans and Views, you click on Floor Plan. Once you click on that, in this case, you notice that the fifth floor is available. To the bottom, there's a Do Not Duplicate Existing View. If you click that, you'll see all these other views that are already created. But we won't get into that now. I can definitely talk about that more on my blog. So I'm just going to click this back. And where it says fifth floor, I'm going to say OK. And what that does is Revit created a fifth floor. It actually put me in the view to show me what it's creating. And in this case, you can see it right here on your left. And I'm going to actually close this. And now if you look at the fifth floor level, you're going to notice that it's blue. That means that there's a floor plan that's associated to it. Great, we're all happy. Now, one of the ways that I also like to create levels is actually using the array command. I do a lot of high buildings. I do multi-floor tower buildings because most of the work I do is here in New York. So at many times I can have anywhere from 4 to 26 floors at any given time. And what's nice in Revit, or at least when I'm setting up a project, and especially when I'm working with levels, is when I want to create the levels quickly, but I don't necessarily know what the floor-to-floor height's going to be. I don't even necessarily know how many floors I'm going to have right away because the designers haven't really told me what's going on. But I want to show you something that you can do that will allow you the flexibility to adjust quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually select this fifth floor. And when I selected a fifth floor, I'm going to actually click on the Array button, which is right there. And when you notice I clicked on the Array button, you're going to see here that there's a couple of settings. I'm going to leave most of the settings because they're exactly what I want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put in a value, and I'm going to say 10 because I'm basically saying I want 10 levels to be created from the level that I selected. And in this particular case, you want to keep group and associate checked. So I'm going to go over to that level, and then I'm going to click, and then I'm going to actually, that's my initial click, and then I'm going to start to push up. And in this case, I'm going to say 10 feet. Alright? And then I'm going to click. And then what you notice here is that multiple levels have now been created. And if you look over to the left here, you see that there's a number value. That's 10. That's the same 10 value that we put up here, which is great. I want that. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to scroll out. And when I scroll out, you're going to notice that there's the 10 levels that I've created. And granted, right now the naming convention of the levels is not correct, but that's fine. That's something we can work on afterwards. What I'm really concerned about is how many levels I have and at the spacing that I created. So at this point, let's say a designer came back and said, you know what, we need to increase the building height from 10 feet to 15 feet. I'm sorry, not 10 feet to 15 feet, from 10 levels to 15 levels. So the great thing is that since all these levels are associated to each other, I can actually just come in here and I'm just going to click to the right so you don't see anything, but I'm going to click one of these levels. And the second I click it, it's kind of, if I happen to know where this is, the array, let's call it dimension string, well, there's an array dimension string, and then I can zoom in right there where it says 10. And if I actually click in there, I can actually put 15, let's say in this case, because I want to add 5 more. And then once I do that, it actually adds 5 more levels. Now I've already gone past that roof level. This was right around where I was talking about before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it from 15 actually to, let's say 11. Or actually, let's even go to 12. So now I got my levels in. I have 12 levels. So you can see how using the array command can allow you to add and take away from your levels, which is great. For me personally, I love that. It just allows me to add and subtract really quickly and so forth. So now let's say we're happy with all our levels. Now you can do a couple of things. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to actually select all my levels, and I'm going to ungroup those ones that were grouped initially. Let's say I'm happy with my floor-to-floor heights. The designers are great. Everyone's, on the same page. I'm just going to ungroup these. Now the other thing, if you notice, is when we did the array, as I was mentioning earlier, you can see that the datums here are white. So that means that there's no floor plans that are associated to these levels that I've created. So just like we did before, I'm going to go over to the View tab, and I'm going to go over to Plan Views and Floor Plan, and you're going to see here that says 11 to 25. These are the levels that I've created since using the array command. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all those guys, and I'm going to hit OK. And then what happens is it actually created floor plans for all those levels. And for now, we're not going to rename them. We're going to leave it where it is. I'm going to actually go back to this view, and what I'm going to do is use the close hidden command, because I have when I created all those levels, it actually opened up those floor plans behind the window that I'm currently looking at, and I want to keep my windows at a smaller quantity. So I'm going to hit close. And at this point, now I've created some levels. I'm happy with those levels. Oops, and there's one more that I want to ungroup. And the next thing I want to do is, this is another one of my favorites, is I'm going to actually dimension to my levels, like so. I'm going to create a dimension string for purposes that you will see shortly. So I have individual strings that are linked to my levels, and then I'm going to do one overall one. And this should be a Revit trick that I think most people know. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually select this string, this whole string that's connected to all my levels, and I'm going to hit the EQ button. And what that's going to do is that's going to equal out the levels based on this overall dimension. And when I do that, click away, what it's done is it made all the levels equal distance to the overall value here. So the next thing I want to do is I'm just going to do a quick count here to make sure that my math's on. I'm going to actually just select these levels. Let's see, I got 16 levels. So I have 16 levels starting from the second floor. Well, I want a 10 foot level to level height. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pick this top string here, because what I want to do is manipulate this dimension string, and I'm going to put in the value 160 feet. Now if my math is right, I'm going to actually select this dimension string and take the EQ off, and if we look, all of the levels are 10 feet level to level, and that's great. That's exactly what I want. So for now, it looks like what's going to happen is I'm going to be one of those developers who's going to bring in a high-rise residential building to the neighborhood. That what they actually really need is something less than that. But hopefully you got a quick understanding of how you can use levels in a way to set up your project. What I'll do in another tutorial is I'll actually do the same process, but I'm going to show you how you put levels, or not levels, but I'll show you how to put grids into your project. The process is exactly the same, but I'd like to keep this video short and to the point, so check back with me shortly and I'll show you how to do grids.